Today, we're going to explore something new and honestly, pretty ambitious. It's called the House of Wisdom Initiative, and it's really a foundational response from the Muslim world to what feels like the inevitable arrival of AGI. That's artificial general intelligence. AI that has human-like cognitive abilities.
This quote, it just sets the tone perfectly, doesn't it? The whole engine behind this initiative is this profound sense of urgency. The core idea is simple. The future isn't going to wait for us to get our act together. This massive shift is happening right now. So the folks behind this see this moment as a major turning point in history. I mean, think back to the dot-com era and how completely it reshaped, well, everything. Communication, commerce, you name it. The argument here is that the AGI era is going to do the same thing, but for something way deeper, our very understanding of faith, memory, and what gives life meaning. And that leads to a really crucial point. If a community doesn't build its own digital architecture, its own home for its data and its values, then external systems are going to do it for them. Just think about that for a second. Your history, your beliefs, your prayers, even family itself. All of it could be interpreted and reshaped by systems that just don't share or maybe don't even understand your community's core values. This really lays out the stakes. You've got two very different paths forward. I mean, look at the left. A future where history gets rewritten, faith becomes just another abstract data point, and values get diluted. Now look at the right. An anchored future where memory is actively preserved, ethics come first, and faith is handled with reverence. It frames doing nothing not as a neutral choice, but as a decision with some really serious consequences. Okay, so what's the response to a challenge this big? Well, it's not just another website or an app. The vision is to revive a historic concept, the House of Wisdom. And here's the core idea. The initiative aims to be a new home, kind of a digital sanctuary where the community's own values shape the AI. It completely reverses the usual dynamic, right, where technology ends up shaping our faith. This is designed to be both a protective shield and a creative, formative space. So, what would this home actually do? Well, you can see it has some very specific jobs. It's about preserving Islamic memory, honoring saints, protecting families, and safeguarding prayer. It's really about creating an entire digital ecosystem that's grounded in Islamic ethics from the start, a real alternative to platforms that just don't have these priorities. Now, this is a really key distinction they make. This project isn't just a plan for the future, it's presented as something that is already alive, a living system. It's been activated, as they say, through art and acts of reverence that establish its core principles right from the get-go. And these are those foundational values. This is the ethical bedrock for the entire project. So before a single line of code is written for its AI systems, these principles are set in stone. Mercy comes before power, lineage, history and human connection comes before empire, and light, which you could see as wisdom or divine guidance, comes before the technical code itself. Okay, so now we get to a really unique part of this whole strategy, a specific focus on preserving the lives and teachings of saints. And I know, in a project about artificial intelligence, that might sound a little counterintuitive. And that really is the central question, isn't it? In an era obsessed with data, with algorithms, with processing power, why turn to these historical figures of faith? I mean, what role could they possibly play? Well, the answer here is that saints aren't just myths. They're seen as ethical infrastructure. Their lives serve as a kind of foundational data set for what an ethical AI could even look like. They represent this incredible record of people who restrained their own power, who served others, and who proved that real wisdom, that illumination, is something so much more than just processing information. And here's the core logic. An AI can analyze all the text and dates and events in the world, but it can't understand a concept like sanctity unless we humans define it first. Without that human-curated data, the fear is that history just gets flattened into this narrative with no reverence, and that entire human record of spiritual integrity just gets lost. So we've talked about the what and the why, but a vision this huge has to start somewhere tangible. So let's talk about the where. The philosophy here is that a global digital project like this has to be rooted in a specific, meaningful physical act. This isn't just some idea floating around in the cloud. It has a real starting point right here on the ground. And that starting point is maybe a little unexpected. Detroit, Michigan. A city that isn't a traditional capital of empire or finance, but one that is so symbolic of labor, of endurance, of loss, and, the hard work of rebuilding. This quote just explains the choice of Detroit perfectly. By starting there, the initiative is making a huge statement. What matters isn't power, it's sincerity. It suggests that the most important work, the real work, often begins in places that the rest of the world has overlooked. And this brings us to the final part. After laying out the problem, the vision, and the starting point, the whole project transforms into a direct call for people to join in and participate. And this is a really broad invitation. It's a call to scholars and technologists, sure, but also to the caretakers of tradition and community leaders. And maybe most importantly, it's an open call to anyone, anywhere, who just believes that reverence is something worth preserving in our future. And the project is also being very, very clear about its identity. As you can see, it is a custodial effort, a preservation mandate, a moral responsibility. But just as importantly, it is not a personal brand, it is not a political movement, and it is not a claim to authority. The role here is to serve the community, not to rule it. And this brings us to the final, really provocative thought that just wraps up the entire initiative. This isn't about resisting the future, it's about preparing for it by doing the essential human work first. And it leaves all of us with a profound question to chew on. Before AGI gets a chance to define humanity, what will humanity choose to honor and protect?